So welcome everyone again to today's webinar, which is all about scaling a CPG brand to national success. So I am joined today by David Segal, who's the current president of Highbeam and founder of DAVIDsTEA. And we're going to be talking about his lessons and on the journey of building DAVIDsTEA and what he's seen countless other CPG brands do to build as well. We're going to do a little bit of intros, go through talking about David, um, lessons learned from growing his company, and then how to scale smarter. We'll have time at Q&A at the end, but want to make this as valuable as possible. So again, feel free to jump into a chat. Let us know any questions that you have along the way. So David, I'd love to just to you, and if you introduce yourself, talk through your journey as a founder and kind of where you are today.
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you all. I've been a serial entrepreneur, but I'm best known for building DAVIDsTEA from 0 to 200 million in sales, 30 million of EBITDA, 200 stores across North America. I took it public on the NASDAQ and I sold it. Today, I'm the president of Highbeam. Highbeam is a banking and cash management platform for consumer brands. I actually started as a customer of theirs. So after DAVIDsTEA, I built a bunch of businesses, one of which I got fed up with my bank. I was getting 0% yield on my cash, no intelligence on my data, clunky software, bureaucratic service. I discovered Highbeam, met the founder, took a leap of faith, became a customer, and was blown away. I mean, the product was great, the service was great. They turned it was a cost center for me, a profit center. Anyway, long story short, I called them up and became a small investor and advisor. And then over time, I ended up coming on full time as the president. Yeah, and we have about several hundred consumer brands who all sell physical goods that we do automated treasury for, automated financial planning and analysis, bill pay, etc. And I love it. I get to talk to amazing brand builders like you all day long. So it's sort of the perfect culmination of my career. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's fun, David. And I actually just, a couple months ago signed up for a Highbeam bank account as well. And you're right, like the platform is super easy to use. And I like thinking about banking as a profit center instead of a cost center. And so doing that through interest rates, right, and some of your products, being able to get working capital through. So I think lots of fun things there, which we can talk a little bit about later. So I'd love for you to kind of jump into the challenges that brands or that you've experienced that you see other brands experience as they are growing their businesses, especially as it relates to cash. As we know, especially for those of us who are in CPG brands, any kind of inventory-based business,
Yeah.
there's this huge cash conversion cycle that happens to a lot of brands. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I'm actually going to jump in with probably an unpopular opinion. And Jordan, you and I were talking about this as we were getting ready for the call 5 minutes ago. Um, I think there's some fundamental flaws in the CPG business right now. Um, Most people believe, it's very difficult to have a lifestyle business and only sell into grocery or big box or wholesale. There really aren't many of them. And this is because the cash conversion cycle is really bad. You're paying for product up front, and many of you have experienced this, and you're not getting paid for a while thereafter. Um, and it's really difficult. I mean, if you look at Whole Foods fridge and you took a picture of it today, and then you went back 5 years from now, most of the brands are gone. And this is because you don't own the shelf, and so you high five the second you get into a great chain, but there's 10 other people calling that same buyer the next week trying to take your spot. So it's inherently difficult to make money in CPG at the grocery or wholesale level. And I think the reality is most of our businesses, and this is again an unpopular opinion. I mean, I with Highbeam, I meet 20 brands a week, like you guys, and have for the past year. So I see a lot, and the vast majority of the brands, lifestyle businesses, like for every Poppy who sells to Pepsi, that's the exception, not the rule. Like not everybody's going to 500 million in sales or 300 million in sales. Many of you are going to have, 10 to $50 million businesses, and that can be really good if you can spit out a ton of cash out of those businesses. So I think it's really important to develop your own channels. Now that might look slightly different in each case. Obviously, the obvious one is a Shopify store, but for some of you that doesn't make sense for a variety of reasons. But I think finding ways to get channels that offer you better cash conversion cycles where you own the relationship with the customer, I think today is enormously valuable. And it touches on like inventory eating cash. The name of the game is trying to reduce your cash conversion cycle. and trying to turn your inventory faster. And it's really hard to do that on someone else's shelf. You need to balance that out with some of your own channels. You
And
know,
then David, I
yeah.
know a lot of us, probably everyone here has experienced the cash conversion cycle. Can you break down what that term means and how to think about it for those who might be living it but might not know
Well,
exactly?
here's the best way I can do it is through a story. I mean, I've got two stories that one from DAVIDsTEA and one from a customer at Highbeam. So we have a customer at Highbeam who I've become friendly with. Great business, $40 million business. He's owned it for 9 years. He owns it outright. It's mostly D2C, and he sells a little bit into Nordstrom's and like Best Buy type stores. So, you know, and his buying terms with his supplier is one supplier for his product. His buying terms are 30% upfront, 30% after, sorry, 30% before production starts, 90 days of production, 30% before it goes on the boat from China, and the remaining 40% net 30. So basically, he has negative 60-day buying terms. And he was having his first kid. I have three kids. I said to him, I'm like, I don't want to say his name of confidentiality reasons, but I said to him, I'm like, look, like get yourself a nanny. Nanny save marriages. And his business on paper is profitable. And he goes, I can't afford it. And I go, what are you talking about? You've been profitable. You've been running this thing for 9 years. He goes, I have to pump in every dollar in the business. I'm constantly behind on my working capital. And so I'm like, well, what are your buying terms? And I find this out. I'm like, wow, the number one priority for you is get on a plane, go see your supplier, line up two other suppliers, and negotiate like your life depends on it, because it does. At David's Tea, I had net 90 on tea. And it was part of the reason we were able to scale so fast. And like, so, and he's like, he didn't really understand the impact of them, of what that would have on his business. So I built him a working capital calculator. If you guys go to highbeam.com, you can actually download it. And it basically has a series of inputs that you put in: inventory turns, buying terms, margins, et cetera, et cetera. And it spits out what your working capital needs are going to be for the next year. And then you can play around with some of the variables and see what the impact is on how much cash you're going to need to run your business. So for this particular individual story I'm telling, I ran him through the working capital calculator, and I go, now if you go from negative 60 to just 60 days, net 60, which he can get. Remember, he's got a big business. He has a long track record. He's been profitable. The difference was $2 million he can pull out of the business and put into his own pocket. Now, for some of you, you're not going to put it in your own pocket. You're going to invest it in marketing. You might invest in different ways, and that's fine too. But the point is, he frees up $2 million of cash flow. If that's $2 million that belongs to you, phenomenal. It's your $2 million. If it's $2 million you would have had to go and borrow, that's $2 million that you don't have to pay interest on. So that's cost of capital, right? So like this matters for every single individual on this call. You know, we know how to read P&Ls. Some of us know how to read balance sheets. Very few of us understand cash flow. And the name of the game is cash flow. You can't scale your business without reducing your cash conversion cycle. And I hope that example kind of gives you an illustration. And you know, check it out on our website. You know, our working capital calculator. It can be really helpful in helping you get a better, you know, back of the napkin sense of how much cash your business eats and how much less it would eat if you had minor tweaks like better turns on your inventory or better supplier terms.
And David, here's one thing that I found. I went through this myself as a first time founder of thinking that the terms people gave me were the terms I had to pay, right? If I was buying ingredients and had to pay those maybe upon shipping, I just had to pay it. There's no other options. If I was selling to Whole Foods, to some of the other retailers, they're like, hey, look, we pay net 30, 60, 90. Like I just had to take what I could get, especially
Sure.
starting out. Is that true? Where's the negotiation power there? And you talk through like how valuable from a dollar perspective it is, but like what's possible when negotiating?
Far more than you think is the way to think about it. Whatever you think is the furthest you can push a vendor. By the way, it works on your receivables too. You guys all think that your receivables are set in stone, but they're not. Like there are opportunities to negotiate. The way I would say it is build history, build trust, do what you say you're going to do, and remind the person that you did what you said you would do. So what I used to, we didn't have net 90 on day one at David's Tea, but we built into it. And the way we built into it was I was like, look, this is what we're going to do this year. And then I'd show up the next year in Jan. I always showed up in Jan because Christmas was our holiday season. So first of all, that's another thing. Always show up. You're ahead of almost every single person if you show up face to face. Face to face for these important, for where it's going to make a material impact on your cash conversion cycle, show up. So show up with your vendors in person, show up with your key receivables in person. Like you will get a lot more out of them if you build that relationship, and you can't build relationships the same way over Zoom as you can in person. Second of all, remind them of what you said you would do and then what you did. So I always showed up in Jan. I'd be like, "This is what we said we do last year. Here's what we did. Here's what I need." I didn't always get it on in the first year, but I'd say to him, "Listen, for you and I to work together long term, I need this. I get it. You can only go halfway with me right now. So I want 60, you're giving me 30. Okay, I'm going to come back next year and here's what I'm going to do. And if I do it, I need 60. And then at some point you got to line up other options, right? Like you need leverage. So like I had 5 different tea suppliers. Now that's tough to do when you don't have a lot of scale. So you got to work your way into that. But like you do want to be talking to new vendors and you want to be able to play one vendor against the other. Some of you will find that uncomfortable, but it's like the expression, easy choice is hard life, hard choice is easy life. Like get comfortable in the uncomfortable, especially when it comes to negotiating your terms, both the receivables you get and the payables, because like this can make this is going to make such an impact on your business, even almost even more so. Like I would rather take better terms with my supplier, like 90 or 120-day terms, which you can get, by the way. I mean, there are people that have that. I know that sounds crazy to some of you on this call, but it exists. I'd almost rather that than I would and take a margin hit than I would the other way around. And we don't often think that way. We often think in terms of discounts and margins, which are important too. I don't get me wrong, but like your buying terms are far more important than you realize.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I mean, you mentioned on here too, right? Like retailer payout delays. And I see a lot of retailers, especially when you're working through distributors like some of the national ones, KU and FI, they like really push this back and they're paying later than you expect them to. And they're taking more discounts on
Yeah.
those payments, which directly affect your cash flow, right?
So Highbeam automates manual finance tasks and we save you real time and real money. So the first way we do it is automatically sweeping your money into high yield and back to primary. We make you yield on all that idle working capital. And like for every $100,000, it's gonna be roughly 3.5 grand right to your bottom line. So, and some people have $500,000 or $1 million of cash and then it's like 15 or 30,000. So the numbers add up. But
Wait,
the other
David,
thing,
go in a little bit of detail on that, right? Since you mentioned it, because I'm using this right now, where if you have money sitting in the bank, a lot of times you see these banks advertising for like high yield savings account. Usually they're like personal savings account, but you're doing this built into Highbeam and for businesses, right? Where it gets
we're doing it
structured.
for businesses. And most importantly, we're automatically moving the money for you daily. We're sweeping between a primary account and a high yield account and back. So when all of you guys probably know this because you paid interest at one time in your life, the rate is not as important as the number of days outstanding. So if you borrowed for 17% for 30 days and 18% for 15 days, the higher rate for 15 days is going to be cheaper for you in terms of dollars than the lower rate for more days. So it's the same works when you receive interest. So by moving the money daily, we maximize your yield on idle cash every single day. And the days add up. Even if you were to move money weekly, let's say, it wouldn't be nearly as much. So we find more cash from you everywhere we can. But where I was going with this is we automate your 13-week cash flow statement. A lot of you probably have some janky spreadsheet where you have to manually pull in the inflows and manually pull in the outflows. We automate that for you. And ultimately, what we're going to help, we're going to build in vision wise. So that we do today, and we have it rolled out across our customer base, and it's super valuable. And we save hours a week for a lot of people who have to do this manually. But where it's going, like all we do is consumer brands, right? So we're going to build in a receivables module as well. So exactly what Jordan's talking about, where like, how often does K really pay you or your other wholesale accounts? Like we're going to arm you in 2 ways with that information. One, so you can negotiate with them and be like, hey, I know you said 60 days, but you paid me 10 times last year and it was on average of 80 days. Number one. Number two, we can build that into your cash modeling. So you don't just assume what they tell you. We actually are able to use the history to model the cash appropriately and give you a much more accurate real-time view of your cash projection over the ensuing 13 weeks. So that's kind of where we're going narrow and deep as a business. What got me excited about Highbeam is like when I had scaled DAVIDsTEA, I had like 10 people in finance doing God knows what manually in these spreadsheets. And I'm old enough to remember what Shopify in the cloud did to my server room in my IT department. And what we're focused on Highbeam is making it so that you can all scale your businesses without having to scale your finance team. So the more we can automate and allow you to run leaner, the more profitable we can hopefully make your businesses.
So, David, what are some of those reports or kind of dashboards that founders should be tracking on the financial side if you don't have a finance team that
Yeah,
they should be looking at?
a 13-week cash flow. You should have a 13-week cash flow. where's your money going? Money in, money out over the next 13 weeks. And we can automate that for you. So it's actually really easy. Even if you don't have it today, like we can set that up for you. Um, that's one of the most important things. I mean, we don't monthly P&L would be one I would want to have. I actually do a daily P&L. It's an estimate, of course, but I like having a daily P&L. Um, yeah, those I wouldn't overcomplicate it. Those are the big ones. Uh,
I love that.
yeah.
So let's talk through some of the things that you learned as well, because we were talking about this. Talk to me about like why you're thinking about cash flow as being more important than revenue growth.
Well, I think two reasons. I think the first is you simply won't be able to grow. So, you know, it will be very hard for you. Certainly, if you're selling to CPG, it will be sorry, if you're selling in a grocery or you're selling wholesale only, it will be impossible for you to get negative cash conversion cycles. If you're mostly D2C, you can actually get to negative cash conversion cycles. It's difficult, but it's doable. Um, you're going to try as hard as you can to reduce your cash conversion cycles, but ultimately you will have negative cash conversion cycles. So if you're growing, the money's got to come from somewhere. So it's either debt or it's equity, but you got to figure out how you're going to finance your growth. So one, you need capital to grow in this business because the cash conversion cycles, unfortunately, don't allow you can't put unless your vendor will finance your growth, which is what I was talking about earlier, basically trying to get them to do. Then and you want to get as much leverage as you can there, but ultimately you're going to need some capital. And the second reason I think this is so critical is like, you know, again, unpopular opinion, but like most of you aren't going to sell the Pepsi. You may think you are, but you're not. Like it's the vast majority of CPG brands that never happens. Like the idea that you're going to grow to nine figures and get acquired is very much the exception and not the rule. And I think we have this problem that the pandemic created where we all believe we're going to exit these businesses at these huge multiples, and that's not what I see. What I see is a phenomenal mid-market of mid-sized businesses that have enough scale to be profitable and have a wonderful lifestyle business. And I think if you reorient, you have to ask yourself the hard question, like, am I building a business that I can actually scale and sell, or am I building a lifestyle business? And the answer to that will determine how you go about things quite differently. If you're building a lifestyle business, and by the way, if every one of you says I'm building a business to sell, like where there's what 16 people on this call, so take out you and me, Jordan, so 14. So like maybe one of you should be building like just looking at the odds here, if that one of you should be like, no, I'm growing at 150% a year. I'm already at 20 million. I'm gonna be at 100 million in 3 years. I'm selling this damn thing. David doesn't know what he's talking about. One of you should be able to say that. But like probably the other 13 of you, like you have a lifestyle business. You're growing 20-30% a year. It's a good business. But the odds of you building it to a massive exit are unlikely. And so I would be kind of thinking differently and looking at, how do I start to turn as much profit as I can and free up as much free cash flow as I can. And by the way, that doesn't negate you selling the business if somebody comes along and gives you a crazy offer for it. But at least in the meantime, you'll be making some money.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, David, as you've seen as well, there's usually two types of businesses that get sold. Those that are like growing incredibly fast and they're having that high speed
Right.
velocity. The other are profitable.
That's
Right?
right.
Like people want to buy profitable businesses. They don't want to buy a business that they're going to lose money on. And a lot of people think, oh, like this big company at scale, they'll be able to be profitable where I wasn't. And probably in like few situations that actually happens, like they want to buy a business that's already profitable to like double or triple it, not to make it
100%.
break even.
And that's actually why I joined Highbeam, why I got excited. I mean, it's never been easier to start a business. It's never been harder to make money from a business. And so we help you make money from the business. And we're doing two things. We automate these tedious manual finance tasks. We want to save you time and money, but we pair that with great service. Like we want to be like an old-fashioned bank that, and you don't have to call between the hours of 10 and 4 and press one for English and two for Spanish. Like you get access to support because we're only focused on consumer brands that actually knows that business or has actually built one in me. And you get our cell numbers. So we have a lender marketplace. You need capital, we lend. We have a true line of credit. But more importantly, when you apply with us, with your permission, we help go do all the legwork to find you the right lenders and save you all that time. If you get an asset-backed loan, you'll need a deposit account control agreement. The banks will take months and charge you for it. We'll do it fast and free. So there's a series of ways I think that if you think about the value proposition of what a bank was, it was all about security. Well, we were able to do that through FDIC insurance, which I can explain to any of you if you want to talk with me after. But we also were able to layer in tech and change the value proposition. So it's like the bank is there to actually help you drive profit.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say, David, too. Like I remember early on in my days running T Squares, my CPG brand, I had a call with an or not call, a meeting in person with an investor. And they were like looking through and they gave me this feedback like, you should probably grow this as a lifestyle business. This isn't my idea of like a VC-backed business at that stage. Granted, we did like $10,000 in revenue at that point. So, right, like we were very small. And I took offense of that. I thought they
Yes.
were insulting me when they were saying like I'm not worthy of their money, essentially, and that this should be a lifestyle business. And I used that honestly as a grudge at the time. And it took me until years later to realize that lifestyle business is not a dirty word. Like it's actually should be the goal of most of brands if in
They're the
terms of
best
how to grow.
businesses.
They are the best businesses, especially
Yeah.
like when you own it, you can make money from it. And so I love this talking about cash flow because here's where I think a lot of founders get tripped up is that they're choosing a path to market, a route to market like grocery that has a very bad cost conversion cycle and they're losing all this money. So like, I need money to come from somewhere to fund this business in the way that I'm doing it. And so they feel like the only way is to raise money, get a lot of debt, or get equity. But if you understand the cash flow and the cash conversion cycle for each channel, each way of selling, then you actually can design a business model that works for you and how you want to run it.
1,000%. And the sort of dirty little secret that I mean, you all might be sitting here in all kinds of different situations. By the way, like I've been where you are. Like building a business is like walking through quicksand and chewing broken glass most of the time. Like I know how hard it is. Like you're all fighting the good fight out there, and it's a really difficult one. And the thing nobody wants to say, like don't people don't like to say the thing, but I have a bird's eye view is like the vast majority of businesses nowadays in this mid market don't make money. Like the money's coming in the front door and going out the back door. And I think there's a fundamental need to rethink, and a lot of founders have been brought up to think that's acceptable. And it's just not. You're all you're doing is, it's you put a pile of money in the middle of the room, you lit it on fire, and you hope you figure it out before it burns up. And you'd almost be, my opinion, you're almost better off if that's your situation. If you're profitable, wonderful. Figure out new ways to turn more dials and make more money. If you're not, rip the band-aid. Unless you're truly growing at like 2, 3x every year, rip the band-aid. Like you're far better off. I would rather have a $10 million business that spits out $1 million than a $20 million business that breaks even.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk through two things I think that go into making those decisions. The first around this idea that retail breaks founders without planning, and also not every growth opportunity is actually worth it.
Yeah, less is more almost all of the time. Both on SKU count, that's often the case. Now, depends on your business. A lot of you don't have a lot of SKUs. It depends. Like if you're doing a lot of D2C, sometimes you do. The exercise I like to do on SKUs is do 80% of my sales represent 30% or less of my SKUs? If the answer to that is yes, you're probably over skewed. If the answer is it's 1 to 1, you're probably under skewed. So now unless you have one SKU and it's on fire, which is a wonderful business, and then you can decide if you want to add or not. But yeah, I think same with channels. Like sometimes we obsess and we go hard at a channel, and it's when you actually step back and you take a look at the real cost of operating that channel versus what you're getting out of it, you're not really making any money on it. And so we feel like we have to be everywhere, but a lot of the times it's better to go narrow and deep and just make sure that wherever you show up, you really show up in a meaningful way, as loud and proud as possible. So I mean, I guess that contradicts a little bit what I said in the opener, where I'm like, don't make wholesale your only channel. I still maintain that. I don't love having my destiny in the hands of a buyer from Whole Foods. But yeah, I mean, I also at the same time don't need to have 5 channels,
Yeah, and the
especially if
biggest
my
thing I
business
always tell
does,
people.
10 million bucks or 20 million bucks.
Yeah, the biggest thing I always tell people as well is if you're going to multiple channels, make sure that you have a proven process for growth in one. before moving on and really focusing on the other? Because I see a lot of people like do a little D2C, a little retail and wholesale, a little like food service, and they're still figuring it out in each channel all simultaneously instead of creating a process for e-commerce and D2C that's really working and growing your business well before
Yeah,
moving to like retail and learning that. Awesome.
totally.
So also talk about partners in business as well, because I know a lot of times founders will try to do it all, realize they can't, and then need help either through software providers or agencies or different groups that they're working with, and your experience with that.
Well, I obviously think Highbeam is a great partner. Take my advice would be take the free money when it's offered to you. Take ways you. The name of the game is leverage. How can you get more leverage on your time, on your output, on your impact, right? So and we're actually living through a time where the amount of partners that could potentially add value to your business is exploding. So I would be keeping, keep a growth mindset there and be meeting different partners and finding people that can actually make an impact to your bottom line. Um, but also it can be a minefield. Like I've never met an ad buyer I haven't fired. So like there are some areas that are really difficult to find and I think anybody that tells you things like usually I find when it feels wrong and the hairs in the back of my neck go up is when I got to run the other direction. Anybody that tells you you got to spend more money to get better ad performance, fire them on the spot. People that say things to you that make zero sense whatsoever, usually it's because it doesn't make sense. So trust your instincts, but I would definitely I think there are a lot of partners out there that can give you leverage materially.
I love that. So let's look through some of the areas that you recommend on how to actually scale smarter. We talked about this first one already,
Yeah.
right? Like plan for cash flow months ahead. How do you go about doing this? I know you said like have a 13-week forecast. I know some people are manually creating this, some people are doing it using software like Highbeam. Like what all goes in there?
Well, the hardest part of this is not creating it; it's keeping it live and up to date, right? So you create it, and then the next week you got to go in there and you got to update it with all the actuals from the week prior. So that's where we come in. We automate all of that. We keep it live, accurate, in real time. Yeah, these are your assumptions, right? Like these are the bills the money you're expecting to send out, the money you're expecting to receive. Um, I think the best time to raise money is when you don't need it. Don't wait until the last minute to try and get money. That's a mistake. Um, let's see. Should we keep going down the list here, Jordan?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about building supplier and retail relationships early. Using financing to create. Yeah, that's what I mean by using financing to create leverage, not patch holes. Like, plan for the rainy days when it's sunny. Don't get your line. Don't ask for your line of credit when the business took a turn for the worst. You won't get it. So if things are going well, that's when you want to get yourself some facilities. Um, yeah, and this is a big one, brand buzz with profitability. I mean, we have a habit of swimming in our own pools a lot, where whether it's posting social content where the same five people, four of whom work at your company, or it's getting that big article that everybody high fives about, but doesn't really drive any business. Um, a great example of this is with DAVIDsTEA. We had Oprah, who was at the peak of her popularity at the time, speak about DAVIDsTEA at a Montreal show, and everybody was freaking out. Oh my God! Like the business is going to double. This is incredible. And somebody who worked on our team had access to the concierge at her hotel and got tea in the room, and she ended up loving it. She started talking about it. She went on stage that night in Montreal and made a big thing of it. And the truth is, it didn't do much. Like, I think we had a small blip with the three stores that were around the arena where she spoke about it, like where the people lived. We had maybe 1 or 2 days where sales were up, materially, but on the whole, it did nothing. It's not to say it wasn't cool. It's just that just be mindful about what actually drives your growth and your profit versus accolades it's the same thing when people tell you as an entrepreneur to keep going even though it's not working or you're doing great or they're trying to encourage you, they're trying to be nice, but it's actually sometimes the wrong thing to like they want to be there to support you, and and many of them love you and are saying it for that reason. And but just be careful. Like being able to be brutally honest with yourself is a real competitive advantage. Like when something's not working, you have to be able to look at yourself and be like, this does not work. And you got to be able to do something different or move on. But like you have to have the sooner you can come to those hard conclusions and be able to face reality head on without the sugarcoating that so many around us try and give us for all the right reasons. It's a wonderful thing in some levels. Um, my wife sometimes gets mad at me about this. She's like, you're too right to the point and discouraging. But like, it's like, look, like I don't want, when entrepreneurs come to me, I'll say it how it is because I've been there and I don't want people to have to waste precious time. You can't change reality through just wishing it to change. Like it doesn't work that way. And so, I would be, as we've talked through a lot of these things, I imagine many of them ring true for you. The best advice I have for you is be able to tell yourself the truth and then do something about it. And then it gives you the opportunity to at least do something.
Yeah, I think that's so good. One thing I want to circle back on too is talking about debt financing for businesses, because I think a lot of founders don't know how to best utilize debt in a smart and creative way. And I actually want to open up a poll as well to see how many of you who are listening have actually used debt financing for your business. I have a couple of options in there as well. If you have, we'd love to do it in anything but like a credit card, because I think everyone uses credit card, but anything besides that to get a sense of what you've used. And David, I'd love to hear from you in terms of how you thought about using working capital for running your business. Because a lot of founders are like, I don't want to get in a situation where I have debt over my head in addition to this, cash conversion cycle that's beating me up. So most people, just as a to share the results, some have used the line of credit, most have not used any debt.
Yeah, I mean, careful. Look, I'm on more on the conservative side on debt. I like to have it available when I don't need it, but I don't like to use it as much as humanly possible. Um, and I only like to use debt short term if I have to, like meaning I know I'm financing something that I know I'm going to get paid for. Um, I would be very mindful of the way debt provides. So there's three types of debt. There's MCA lenders, which lend off revenue. That's Shopify Capital, Clearco, Wayflyers. Be careful when you're calculating true APR, right? They have origination fees. They'll tell you it's 11% for $1 million. I'm making up the number, and then you end up paying it half off halfway through. So you've actually only borrowed 500,000, but you paid 11% on a million. So you're paying 22% or more, right? Because they're fixed fees. So you always want to figure out what the true APR is. And by the way, when in doubt, call us up at Highbeam. We'll tell you. We have a true line of credit where you only pay for what you use. It's true APR. There's no origination fees. There's asset-backed loans, which would be based off your inventory. That's if some of you are a little bit bigger. There you need a deposit account control agreement. Your rates are going to be a lot lower. So whereas MCA lenders are typically in like the 20s and 30s and sometimes 40s, unfortunately, ABLs are going to be asset-backed loans are going to be in that sort of 10 to 15% range, 10 to 16. Um, then there's true lines of credit at a bank that are sub 10%. Most of you won't get that. And if some of you can, those are the best deals you're going to get, but they're very, very hard to get. The banks typically only lend you your own money back to you. Um, Unfortunately, they tend to lead you on there where you'll get the salesperson who's telling you, oh yeah, no, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. You'll spend all this time filling out this paperwork and trying to get it, only to be told that the risk team said no. That's one of the things we're solving for at Highbeam. You apply in one place, and we do the legwork for you to find you the debt that you can get. Um, yeah, but that's kind of how I think about debt. Those are some of your different options. Um, but I think it's really about the other thing I would say is when you don't have a 13-week cash forecast and you're using debt, you tend to over borrow. So you end up being more conservative. You draw more than you need. And it goes back to the comment about the rate is less important than the number of days you actually borrow for. So you're really looking to yes, you want to minimize the rate, of course, but you also want to minimize the amount of days outstanding of the debt you have. That's really a critical factor. And that's where proper planning can help you a lot. But yeah, that's sort of how I think about it.
Awesome. David, I think there's a lot that we definitely covered through this conversation. I also want to open up time for questions and any comments from our audience. So if there's been any topic or question that you have, would love to invite our audience to come up and ask that to David or myself live. It could be about a topic that we talked about. It could be about thoughts on lifestyle businesses versus VC backed. Anything is open. Natalie, I saw you were off of mute. Did you have a question or were you just hanging out?
No, I didn't
Okay,
mean to do.
cool. Um, any questions for David?
I'll raise my hand. Jordan, you just mentioned lifestyle businesses versus VC backed. Obviously, understand like when you're taking VC money, you're giving up some of your equity, but you're also getting access to capital and ideally like people's expertise. So I'd love to hear from David as a founder, like what was your path and do you have a point of view on one versus the other, understanding that everyone's circumstances are different?
Yeah, I had a private equity group. So I had a partner who had made money in the clothing business and funded it, had funded the growth of the DAVIDsTEA, and then we did a deal with the private equity group, the guy who built Staples, along with the founder of Lululemon, and then we grew the business substantially and took it public. You take VC money for one reason and one reason only. You believe that you have a hyper scale opportunity and that you have an opportunity to really build significant scale and sell it. Um, that's the only reason to take it. Like, I think the danger of taking VC money is when that doesn't happen. Because once you take VC money, there's no going back to being a lifestyle business. That's it. You have one path. They need an exit. And by the way, they don't care. They're going to invest in 10 companies. One of them is going to make it. And the other nine, they don't care. They'll let it roadkill for them. And that's just the truth. And so you just have to be okay with that. Like many good businesses that didn't have enough oomph to become scalable acquisitions for a much larger fish have died on the side of the road because of VC funding.
Angela, I'm curious to hear what's your business?
I'm a consultant, but I'm also
Okay.
in the beverage business. I have my own startup that's like a Better For You RTD.
Oh, that's really exciting. Are you going to share the name of it?
No, because it's still
Yeah.
in beta,
It's
but
still in
that's why I'm
development.
here
Okay.
is like just soaking up knowledge to
What's
be launched in the best way.
what's your direction that you're leaning towards, or in terms of how you want to grow the business?
So, my experience is really rooted in the bev alc industry. I've worked for a lot of the large companies, in the wine business and the spirits business. So essentially, like I know that there is a use case and there's an opportunity to essentially like still share from an existing consumer. So I'm also studying to be a certified herbalist.
Oh,
So
wow.
just kind of using that knowledge to create something that works with the occasion of so being social with folks, but provide something that's like good for your body. So it's going to be
So,
value
so
prop rooted in that.
in your example, the way I would think about this, like I would delay VC money as long as humanly possible to see what I have. So the time to get VC money is you have product market fit, your sell throughs are through the roof, you have some kind of D2C business or otherwise, hopefully as well, that gives you access, direct access to your customer. You're growing 2, 3x every year. You hit 5 million bucks run rate. Like if you can delay it as long as possible to get metrics where the story is, this is how much white space we have. This is clearly we have the pole position on this subcategory that we've created, and all we need to do here is pour gasoline on it. That's
Yeah.
that's when I would use VC money. Until then, the longer you can delay it, and by the way, you may never get there, and that's okay too. Like you may find, you know what, I'm not there. The white space is not this, it's this. But so what? I could still get to 5, 10 million bucks and spit out a $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, and I like it and I'm happy with it. Like that's also an option. And the longer you delay, the more optionality you have.
Yeah, no, that's great sound advice. Thank you.
Okay.
It's interesting. My friend Yuval Selek, who runs Promo Mash, has a core around like, are you using VC money for growth or to fund lessons? And I did the other way. We raised $350,000 for my brand T Squares at the very beginning from like small stage VC. It was very expensive and it's like 30% of the company for that amount. And ultimately, the company didn't grow because we were trying to prove out product market fit. We kind of got there, but the pandemic happened and ended up shutting down the business. But it was very expensive capital. And then once we took that money, we realized, kind of as Dave mentioned, like this particular product line was probably better suited as a smaller but steady growth business. But once we were on that VC path, we had to force growth where it wasn't there and make decisions based on satisfying our investors versus our customers.
That's right.
Awesome.
Layla.
Hi there, how are you?
Hi. Good. Nice to meet you.
Good. Nice to meet you too. I'm Layla, founder of Peel Tea. It's a sparkling herbal iced tea that we're selling across Canada and a bit in the States. Curious about your experience or viewpoint on building a company and ready to drink, how like it's a little bit different maybe than any other. And if we should really focus on like profit, or do the poppy style where you're not necessarily profitable, but you're gaining traction, you're gaining real estate, and yeah, just your impressions on that.
I think look, I don't have to tell you this. RTD is really tough, and for every poppy, there's a scroll the length of the 401 of companies that aren't that. So I don't know that I would model myself off poppy necessarily. I just think, unless, look, you'd have to be demonstrating, like poppy came into a space, soda, which is like, I don't know how many billions and billions and billions of dollars, but it's a lot, probably bordering on trillions of unfortunately, we're only available in the US, and I'm a Canadian, so it drives me nuts, but you have to have a Canadian EIN number, or US EIN number.
Yeah.
Sorry, Layla, to answer your question, like you have to have this massive total addressable market where you've really uncovered something that is a fundamental shift for the consumer. If you don't have that, if you're, and this is where it comes, this is where I'm just kind of getting at being honest with yourself. Like, and there's nothing wrong with this. Like to be able to be like, you know what, I have a nice iced tea product. It's really good. Did I invent iced tea or sparkling iced tea? No. Do I have this unique angle that is going to change the category? No. Well, if the answer is no, you're not poppy. And so you're not going to get that level of explosive growth. And so you have to ask yourself what you want. Like, I think it's going to be very difficult for you to scale unprofitably and race against time and hope for an acquisition. You might, like, I don't have a crystal ball. You might, will the stars align and Trump will make money free again and all these people will want to buy companies at inflated valuations and everybody wants to grab a piece. Maybe, but I don't think so. I don't know. I wouldn't put my stake on that. Like, it sounds like, am I reading this right? Like you built this with your own blood, sweat, and tears here?
Yep, absolutely. We have a small angel investors, and that's about it. We're in the next step, like we're signing with Walmart Canada, and Costco's coming in and all that stuff. So it's like we have a segment that is different because it's sparkling, caffeine free, and all that stuff. But beneficial herbs that help your health and all that stuff. So it's better for you, functional, like $500 billion market. It's all like placing ourselves in, playing chess and all that stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of things to consider, profit versus, all the real estate, the Walmart, the exposure.
I would have to believe if I was making this decision, I would have to believe that I have a fundamental category, and my sales velocity would tell me this. Like, are you the fastest selling iced tea ever to hit the Canadian market? If the answer to that's no, if the answer to that's yes, then maybe you do want to fuel the crap out of this and get these. And sometimes going to VCs is a way for you to listen. The nice thing about going to VCs is you're gonna find out the truth real fast. So they're not interested in your feelings. So they're gonna tell you real quickly. And I don't mean like you can always scrounge up money from family offices. I'm talking about going to professional investors that do this for a living. If you go to them and they will tell you straight up what you got. So if you feel you have a shot at that, then yeah, you might check that out. Like maybe you're the grain of sand on the desert here, and there are some, like I don't, like I had one of those in DAVIDsTEA. So like it is possible. It's just you really have to, the growth has to be absolutely explosive. The sell-throughs have to be like, oh my God, die and go to heaven, like we've never seen this before type sell-throughs. And then you have to really feel like by going as fast as humanly possible, you will be able to box out the competition, and you have that runway to do it. And then, yeah, if you have those things and those three things, then you're probably right. Then the move is probably VC money and pour gas on it and go, go, go. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Cool. You're on mute, Jordan.
Awesome. Thanks for that question. I think that was great. Other questions from our audience on your situation? You feel free to write something in the chat or to come off mute or use the raise hand feature.
While you're thinking about that, Layla, one more thing. I made this mistake. Success in Canada does not mean success in the US. And be very careful there. Yeah, the Canadian market is not the same as the American market.
Yeah, we saw that a little bit from, we were launching at Sprouts when everything happened. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, just be really careful. I would not, don't bet your fortunes. Don't believe you have product market fit because you're dominating Canada and then think that's going to translate to America. It likely won't. There's likely tweaks to your product and approach that you're going to need to make. And I would figure that out first.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hannah, come on up. I see you have a question.
Yeah, hello everyone. David, you were talking about the amount of SKUs, and I have a unique situation where I have kind of taken over the family business my parents started when I was a kid. Started vending festivals, events, farmers markets, and we had so many flavors to try to not just be the kettle corn guy, right? So quickly converted to Miss Hannah's Gourmet Popcorn, and then now we just have a lot of really awesome flavors over 24 years in business. In our direct to consumer, like we went brick and mortar route, and then in 2020 launched our wholesale side. And so we're kind of obviously new in the like to market side of the CPG space, but we have so many flavors. I think it's really hard for us to dial down on like what to actually convert into what to try to launch. And I think that we have a lot of clients all over the US, smaller boutique kind of style. So I guess I have a two-part question. One, should I really focus in on like 3 to 5 flavors or like SKUs rather than try to be the like best up and coming? Everybody, lots of people have popcorn. Snacks are really like dominated, right? And the thing that makes us different is that we still make it in a kettle by hand. But that said, our recipes are still using soybean oil, which is looked down on. And so to switch to a healthier oil, we'd like have to 3x our COGS. So just a lot of things going on there. But I guess I'm really trying to scale this business with the wholesale revenue side. And it's hard while also operating with all these other SKUs for our e-commerce and direct to consumer brick and mortar.
So you have a bunch of stuff wrapped in one, but let me see if I can unravel.
Okay,
So on the SKU side, cutting is never easy. If it was, you would have already done it. So it's not like first thing I would do is run the numbers. What do 80% of your sales represent? If the answer is like 60% of the SKUs, you may not have too many SKUs. If the answer is like 30, you've got too many SKUs. And what inevitably will happen is you'll be like, okay, like we need to cut these bottom 2 sellers. We don't make any money off them. They're costing us money. They're adding complexity. We don't make anything. Inevitably, someone on your team will be like, no, Hannah, you can't do that. Our customers love these SKUs. They're the greatest. I had 120 teas and I cut like 10 of them, and you'd think the sky had fallen. Like, and when you go in the store, and then you'll actually do it, and then you'll get 1 or 2 or 10 complaints, and you'll think, oh my God, what has happened? The sky is falling. And I'm here to tell you, it hasn't. Nothing will happen. Your sales will be fine. Everything will be fine. If you ran the numbers properly and you're really underrepresented in that only a small subset of your SKUs are driving the business forward, then just do it and move on and you'll be fine. That's number one. Number two, you were talking about something else, and now it just
we still hand make it and our ingredients.
So yeah, this is an interesting one for you. So price matters. In case you haven't noticed, the most successful retail, the only retail basically that's still around from 20, 30 years ago, are all low cost, right? Costco, who's winning? Costco's winning. Walmart's winning. I mean, that's who wins, right? So like, you know, there's sort of selling to the masses and selling on a low cost model, it kind of works. Here's what I'll tell you from the David's Tea days. Everybody used to go crazy that we needed organic teas. You need to have you shouldn't have artificial flavors. You need to have organic teas. We had the largest certified organic collection of tea in the world, by the way. It was huge relative, like it was like 60 of our 110 teas. I have a new tea company, Firebelly, which is actually how I ended up as a Highbeam customer. I don't use any artificial flavors. Like I use no flavoring, period. I only use real ingredients. But here's the secret. You know what the #1 selling David's tea is, and still is to this day, and some of you on this call have had it before? It's called Forever Nuts. It turns pink in your cup. It's got apple, almond, and beetroot in it. And we sold tens of millions of dollars of this one tea every year. And it is full of artificial flavor. And people love it. And so they'll tell you one thing, like focus on what people buy, not on what they tell you. Like people, are people willing to pay more money for olive oil instead of soy oil? I'm not convinced they are. And you can test that, by the way. There's ways for you to test that. Like put one olive oil SKU on your, or whatever, non-soy oil, whatever your equivalent is, I don't know your business, but like put one of the healthier oils on your website and even drive traffic to it and see if it outsells your top sellers. I'll bet you right now it doesn't.
Yeah. We've had one flavor for the last 10 years, probably plus, that is exclusively bopped in refined raw coconut oil. So still tastes like coconut, all of that. It goes bad. We throw it away. Like it hits its best by day and nobody wants it. And so it's just frustrating when we can't get like the Whole Foods or whoever because the label, but they're kind of lying. It's just a barrier to entry because they have that stuff on their shelves. They just won't take new stuff that's like that. So, okay.
Don't try and push, follow your customer. If you have 1,000 true fans or whatever your equivalent of that is, and they buy something, just go find more that want what you sell. And test along the way, like what you stand for as a brand should never change. How you do things should never stop changing. But like, you have to decide, you obviously don't stand for not as high quality oil, but you stand for low cost. You stand for affordable popcorn, it sounds like. And so like, I would just be mindful of this. Like, don't fall into the trap. Like, don't build your business for what the Whole Foods junior buyer that you're talking to wants. Because someone at the top has said, we want to be the healthy store. Like, that's not what's selling for you. So forget Whole Foods. The hell with Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Go find some,
Also, I can tell you Whole Foods popcorn sales are pretty slow. So that's not necessarily a goal to go after.
That's fair.
I can tell you on the tea, it's so funny you say that,
7-Eleven's probably higher.
It's the same on the tea side. Everybody freaks out because they got into Whole Foods. You don't make any money in Whole Foods.
Yeah. We got a question in from Marlis. Thanks so much for the question, Hannah. Marlis says, David, wondering when you launch, what do you think set David's Tea apart from the rest? I mean, especially a lot of people might say tea is a commodity. Like, how do you build a brand to scale publicly off of tea?
Great comment. We uncommoditized a commodity. That's exactly what we did. When you walk in, if I walked into Whole Foods tomorrow, speaking of Whole Foods, and I took a big Santa Claus bag and I took every single tea brand off the shelf and I put it in my Santa Claus bag and I walked out and replaced it all with Layla's tea. And as long as I had English breakfast, I had mint, I had chamomile, I had the 6 usual suspects, right? What would happen the next day? Door would open, customers come in, they grab their eggs, they grab their milk, grab some bread, they walk to tea aisle, they'd be like, oh, where'd my tea brand go? And they'd be like, whatever, here's chamomile, I like it, boom, and it would go in the cart. I don't even think the sales would drop at all, let alone like a little bit. So at the grocery level, tea is you're making your buying decisions based off a picture on a box and a price point, right? And there's 10 versions of Earl Grey and 10 versions of English breakfast. One person has a picture of a farmer, one person has a picture of a tree, and like there's all kinds of different angles to it. One's this price, one's that price. But fundamentally, it's a commoditized experience and with commoditized product. David's Tea completely flipped that on its head. We created a retail environment where you engage your senses. So you're smelling tea, you're talking about tea, you're tasting tea. We had 110 flavors. We recognized that like tea was something you put in hot, cold water that isn't coffee. So even though in reality, teas are specific plants, the Camellia sinensis plant, but we call any herb or spice that isn't coffee tea in North America. So we made all these exciting permutations and combinations. It was like cooking, right? And going back to my SKU comment, like you might be like, well, David, you're telling me not to have SKUs. You had 120 SKUs. I did, but they all held their own weight. like people would come in and buy 3-4 teas at a time, and you know, my 80-20 rule, I would cut so that I ended up at like 50-60% of my SKUs equaled 80% of the sales. I was very mindful of that as we scaled. But yeah, that's what David's Tea did. We uncommoditized what was otherwise a commodity experience. And unfortunately, I sold the business in 2016. They went right back to commoditizing it. You know, they went right into wholesale. You could buy it at the pharmacy, and you know, no one on the Upper East Side of New York, or in, you know, West Vancouver, or in Forest, or the wealthier areas who are buying Christmas gifts are going to buy their Christmas gifts at David's Tea if they can also buy it at you know, a Rexall and CVS. So you can't go up market and down market at the same time. You mute, Jordan.
I went to the DAVIDsTEA in Chicago all the time, and just like the experience of it, smelling the teas and trying them all was like an amazing experience. And I love that. And I think that's what's so important about products. I think there's two things. Some people in the CPG space here, like, okay, you need to go after a white space and make the product incredibly innovative. And I think there's also dangers there, because if the product's so different, then there's a huge educational hurdle for people, and it's very, very expensive. I made that mistake with T-squares. Um, and then the other side is you just are a Me Too product and you do something that's exactly the same. I say the key balance is to find like a very core product that people love and they buy and have high frequency, and you have one point of differentiation that's really strong that customers care about, and you go into that and you have something, you change that experience, right? Everyone's familiar with tea, and you built that experience around it to make it fun, engaging, give optionality, have it kind of feel personalized because you got to pick your own kind of options. And I think that goes a long way. And same with CPG products, you find that one thing that, you know, customers go in, they're looking for that product and what's going to be special about you compared to the other dozen options on the shelf. So love that. Awesome. We are at time for today, but David, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you so much for all of our listeners for your questions. Definitely appreciate it. One thing I just want to give a shout out, if you are looking for a banking partner, check out Highbeam. I was a customer of one of the big banks for so long, and I started working with Highbeam, and it's a great seamless experience. They are our sponsor for the day, but I personally use their services for my business as well.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. And I wish you guys nothing but success. I know how hard it is to do what you're doing, and keep fighting the good fight.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Take care.